Good morning, good morning, good morning. Just a second. Set up for you guys. Lisa, how are you? Where are you at, Lisa?
I'm in Denver.
Oh,
I keep adding it to my thing and then it just keeps going away. So
you have to go into your actual Zoom account and
Mhm.
change your profile name,
I
which
know. And then I keep forgetting to do that because then I'm like, oh, I got homework. So it's fine. I'll take care of it.
where in Denver are you? Have we
So
talked about
I'm
this?
I'm at the Cherry Creek office. I don't know if
Okay.
you're over here.
Yeah,
So
I was born and raised Denver.
oh, you were. Okay.
Yeah,
So I
I'm
live in
actually
Littleton and then I'm at the Cherry Creek office of Compass here.
okay, cool. I used
Yeah.
to before I moved to New York, I was living in Wash Park.
Oh, awesome. So where'd you go to school?
Colorado State.
Well, where'd you go to high school?
So I was Stanley Lake High School up in like the Broomfield, Westminster area.
Well, that's funny because I was at Pomona, which is right by Stanley
Oh,
Lake.
get out of here.
Yeah,
My little rival. I love it.
I know. Well, and Pomona is not really a Pomona anymore. Well, it is,
Oh,
but it's now a combined middle school. There's no kids there anymore. So um, they're,
because RV High School, Ralston Valley, I think came in there, and my
yep,
mother still works in the school district there in Jefferson County. So
yeah, yeah.
that makes sense.
So
When were
yeah.
you in Pomona
Oh,
ish?
I'm old as shit. So I graduated in 92. So it's been a long time.
Oh, we're similar. I was 98, but
Not quite similar, but
that's
close.
pretty similar. We're just gonna call it similar.
We'll call it similar.
Deal.
All
Well,
right, good.
welcome today.
Thank you.
Let's see here. Welcome, guys, for those of you just joining us. Spotlight Realty Group. What's going on?
How you doing, man?
Good. How many guys got there in the office today?
Everyone, we had a sales meeting, so everyone's taking that ended at 11, so everyone's taking a quick break before this. Hey,
Cool.
can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah. Shoot.
All right, so one thing that we were talking about this morning, as far as calling your sphere of influence,
Mhm.
do you have any good tips as somebody who is super reluctant to call people out of the blue that maybe I haven't talked to in a while, and yes, they are true sphere of influence, a good way, a good icebreaker of making these calls to them, of saying, hey, we haven't talked or haven't spoken in a while. I'm calling. Well, why are you calling? Like what would be a good way?
So this is going to be an either or, not an and. Okay. Either stick to business. There is nothing irresponsible or disrespectful about just calling and having a business focused conversation that
Okay.
is about real estate, etc., or a topic. Nothing wrong with that. Okay. That's more in our head about I haven't touched you in a while and I haven't talked with you, or it's hard to combine the catch-up call with a business call without leaving that person feeling even worse, to be honest.
Yeah, right.
Either stay focused on a business call directly or do one rotation, of that portion of your list with just a catch-up call that talks no business.
Okay.
It's just like, hey, I'm checking in. What's going on? How are you doing? And then on the next 5, 6, 7 week rotation, as you get back to that name again, then make a business call.
Cool. Putting out some
sense?
breadcrumbs, as one of the agents on our team said this morning.
Yeah, I mean, it's we have a lot of opportunities outside of what we might consider prospecting times to catch up and make casual calls, right? That's what networking's for. When we go to games, we go to events, we go to things in our community, like then I don't have to feel like I'm on at those times.
Yeah.
Those are my times then to just talk to you like a person, catch up, ask about your family, what's going on with business, job, health, etc. That way, then when I get to my prospecting moments that I've designed in my business, I have no problem then just picking up and making a straight business call.
Cool. Love it, man. Thank you.
Can I add to that?
Maria, of course.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. We've got 4 minutes, Maria. So anytime, guys, by the way, prior to like the start of our actual session, you can always kind of ask anything. And then I'll cut you off and we'll kick it off for today. But go right ahead, Maria.
Okay, I was wondering if you have any pitches that that you could share with us.
Any pitches, like a pitch deck, like a,
Yeah, like, a pitch for someone you haven't talked for a while, or
yes.
a pitch
So
that is
as I mentioned last week, we have an
all-
entire session that goes through literally scripts, approaches, everything. That is next week. How this is designed, just so you guys can kind of see like the first 4 weeks or 4 sessions, it kind of goes heavy technical, light, heavy technical, light. So this session will be a light session in regards to technical data and information. We're going to be talking a lot about just the philosophy of prospecting in general and how your sphere of influence overlaps, cold outreach overlaps mailers or digital outreach, advertising, things of that nature. And I'm going to talk about things that are really important. And we're also going to talk about kind of like the purpose of prospecting. Like when I make a phone call, what is the actual end result, right, that I'm hoping for in my outreach? And we're going to talk about something called high impact activity today. So I will absolutely, Maria, I know you asked last week. I know you're asking this week, Mike, give me words, give me things. We will absolutely get there. We're going to have an entire session next week that is very, very, very script and like what to say heavy. And so I will reserve that for that session. All right, we got Ashok, we've got Debbie, we've got Babs. Keith Davidson, what's up, man? How you doing? Margie's on screen, Veronica's with us, Sharon's with us. Spotlight Realty starting to get all kinds of people back from break. What's up, guys? It is frigid here in New York. I'm in a sweatshirt. Let's see here. We'll kick off here in about 2 minutes. If you have other questions, stuff, you can also put them in the chat. So Caroline, you're asking kind of like, how does that sound? I see what you just put in the chat. That's kind of like your opening, like, hey, how you been? I hope this doesn't feel weird, but you entered my mind today. I figured I'd call and say hello. That's a great general response. And I'm gonna kind of talk today about like purpose, because one thing that is really important is that you don't try to mesh a prospecting call between casual follow-up and like, how are you doing, with something that is business specific. And it leaves everybody feeling awkward. So if that is just like a, hey, checking in, house call, totally good. But if that is the start of a prospecting call, we're going to talk about how to alter that today. Awesome. We got everybody, I think, rocking and rolling. We've got a bunch of people joining in right now. So I'm going to give everybody about 1 more minute to get into the call before we kick off. John, Sean, Charlotte, hello. Alice Madrid, hello. Tana Widows, hello. Christine, hello. All right. Drew Tatum, where are you from, my friend?
I'm in DC. I was actually just trying to edit my profile to put that in there.
No worries. All good. I should probably change our little profile there too today. Let's see if I can rename.
Drew, how are things going down there? Big days coming next week, huh?
Oh boy, you got people either hunkering down, getting excited, or getting out.
I know, I know.
We got a little bit of activity this weekend. People are in a flurry, and then I think we'll be pretty quiet for a little bit.
A lot of people moving out.
You got some people who are trying to tidy up some last minute things. You got some folks who are, waiting to see what happens with job security. So we've got people are getting their feet wet, but at this point it's kind of a hold and wait, just like we did right before the election. So I would say we'll know within the next week or two what the next month, spring market will be like, but things are active at the moment, which I think is a great sign.
Yeah. We're hearing lots of great information, guys. In fact, around the country, there's a lot of pickup, especially for a January season. Granted, there are marketplaces that this is really the slow season, but we've got good numbers already starting to trickle in for January. So I think that's a good positive sign for a lot of the industry. I'm going to go ahead and kick us off today, guys. And one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the ability to unmute yourself to start with. I will get to a stage where we are going to get into, questions and answers and Q&A. If you do have a question as we're moving through content today, please just put it in the chat. That way I can address it when we get there. This will help us just stay focused on the content section of our sessions today. If you weren't on board early with us, guys, I will say that anytime you have a question that might not be on topic for that day's content or session kind of description, jump on the call early. I'm always here probably 10, 15 minutes early. You can jump on, discuss anything that you want with me. It's an easy time for us to do just some one-on-one. Because even in the accountability sessions, we stay pretty focused on a specific topic when it comes to the question and answer sessions, and really just what to focus on and discuss as a group. So I want to make sure that you guys have that little piece of extra time if you really do need something to jump in. So I'll always be on these calls early if you want to jump into additional topics. The other thing I want to say too is that I apologize if the other recording, the secondary recording, the accountability recording, didn't get to you guys in time this last week. That was new for our staff and there was confusion on my part. I thought it was automated to them and it was not. So that is up and available now, but it was something that I think going into the weekend, it had not been placed into your resource center. So just make a note of that the second recording from last week, the accountability session where I showed kind of a preview of exports and contacts, that stuff is now there, which wasn't previous there. So today we are going to talk about the purpose of prospecting. And last week we had a very technical kind of class around contacts and database and organization. What you really should have taken from that session was the importance of being able to run efficiently, like speed when it comes to prospecting, guys. And I had a conversation with the team yesterday in New York City where I sat down with a team of about 6 people, and every one of them complained about the fact that they spend 2 hours in prospecting, but they only get through 10 to 15 calls because they spend so much time searching and trying to find like that next contact. And so making sure that you take the time, I know it sometimes feels like it's going to be a daunting task to overcome, but taking that time to really get your contacts into a spreadsheet, give yourself the ability to just go right down the sheet of names and phone numbers every time that you're going to do prospecting really will make prospecting easier, faster, more efficient for you. Okay. Today, we're going to talk all about, the purpose and how sphere of influence meshes now with other forms of prospecting, cold outreach, how it meshes with things like follow-ups to your client social sphere. And we're going to look at something called high impact activities today, which I think is going to be a really, really important topic for you guys. So if you are taking notes, that is one part that today I want you to really kind of hone in on. As always, this call is being recorded and will be placed in your resource center within our member dev platform. Okay. So let me share my screen and let's get into the presentation. Again, for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Mike Walker. I've been in real estate for, this is now going into my 24th year or 25th year. I've been a broker owner. I've been an investor. I've run commercial divisions, residential divisions. I've been licensed in 3 different states, and I've taught real estate, both sales and negotiation, in 46 different states across the US. So this is a skill set and a topic that I'm really passionate about and I really know. And I've been working with Chirag Shah for a few years as one of our kind of coaches and national speakers. All right. So when it comes to prospecting, what I want you guys to understand is that prospecting is not singular. When I go from office to office and agent to agent, I would say it's probably about a 50-50 split of agents that have really mastered the diversification of their prospecting angles versus people that tend to fall into like a specific niche or a vertical. And what I mean by that is that like, you'll find something that works for a period of time and you'll only focus on that. You'll be like, all right, well, I'm just doing sphere of influence right now. And you'll go through that until maybe it gets boring, or maybe you're like, I don't really know now what to do. And then you're like, okay, let's go to expireds. I went to a class, they taught me how to chase down expireds, or I really want to work on this likely to sell, prospecting list, or for sale by owners, or something of that nature. And they kind of bounce from vertical to vertical, and it tends to draw you to a point of burnout where you don't really give any one specific prospecting vertical the time to really develop the habit. And none of these should be something that you're doing singular, right? Like there's not one vertical where I'd be like, just do that and only that, right? And so your vertical prospectings, they include everything from your sphere of influence. It also includes cold outreach. That would be your expired lists, your for sale by owner lists, etc. Mailers, email marketing. That could also be as simple as a newsletter to your body, your information, your people, and advertisements, whether that's social media, whether that's Google ads, whether it's something of that nature. That's a very advanced one. And from a priority standpoint, it's lower on the totem pole for me. But you want basically the experience of every consumer within your marketplace that you know. That let's give them a name. Let's say your target consumer's name is Leslie. Leslie, I want Leslie when she wakes up in the morning to go on social media and go, oh, look, there's Drew. I see Drew. Drew just posted something that was relevant about the marketplace. And then, a couple days pass and then she gets an email from Drew because she's on Drew's newsletter. She then gets a phone call from Drew. She receives a mailer from Drew. Every place that she's going over the correspondence of about a 45-day period, she's getting 2 to 3 touches in some way, shape, or form from Drew. And I'll be honest, if you get to that stage with prospecting, where you can set up these sequences and these systems where you go, okay, I know how many people I got to call in my sphere of influence. I know I got to put out a newsletter. I know I got to post on social media, right? There are some other things that you can do that add additional buffers, but you are going to always be top of mind when it comes to real estate for the consumer's sense. Now, I don't know if I said this last week, so if I didn't, please write this down. It takes 28 impressions for the brain to correlate one thing with something else. 28 impressions. So if when a consumer thinks about real estate, right, there are hundreds, if not thousands of real estate agents in your area, right? I want them to think about me, which means that their mind needs to have 28 impressions of seeing me paired with the topic of real estate before you can remove one of them and the other will still stay. So like when they see me, they think of real estate. When they think of real estate, or when they see real estate, they think of me. That's what I want, but that takes 28 impressions. That takes a long time to get there if you're just relying on text messages or phone calls, right? It takes a long time to get there if you're just using email. It takes a long time to get there if you're just using social media, because not everybody sees every single one of these contacts or these outreaches. And so when you start to look at prospecting as not a singular approach, but rather a more developed approach, you'll start to understand the purpose of all of this stuff. You'll go, oh, I get it. So a call and a text is one way to contact somebody, and it's a touch. An email is another bumper. A post on social media is another bumper. A mailer is another bumper. An ad somewhere that is focused just on my list of people is another bumper. And throughout the month, throughout really the course of a year, this individual is you are constantly in their peripheral in regards to what you do, right? That means that when Leslie decides it's time for me to now buy or purchase a piece of real estate or sell my real estate, you are going to be top of mind. You are going to be in that ladder of people that she is most likely to call based on just your marketing and prospecting efforts, okay? So prospecting is not singular. That is the whole purpose of that. The other part of this today, and we're going to get into this a lot next week when it comes down to like what to say and how to say it and where to go with this, but reach outs are not singular. Okay. One of the biggest mistakes agents make is that they send a singular text. Here's a text message. That's my outreach. Or they just make a phone call. That's my outreach. Or I just send an email. That's my outreach. I never want that at all. And I'll tell you why. Pick up your phone right now, your cell phone. Look at how many notifications that you have. I just picked mine up and I'm going to count them. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 notifications in the last 25 minutes. Now that's applications, that's news, that's email, that's WhatsApp, that's TikTok, that's Instagram, that's Facebook, that's text message, that's phone number, it's all of the things, right? So if your little notification comes in there, I just got a text from Drew. Drew, I'm just going to use you because you're on my screen, my friend, right? That is amongst 24 other touches. So the reason that we ask you to have multiple modalities in regards to outreach, it's less about the fact that I'm actually trying to get somebody on the phone call. So I get this question a lot. People say, Mike, you say call, but I never get anybody in the middle of the day. The point isn't about getting them, right? It's about a high priority touch that when they miss a phone call, it's actually different than if I miss an email or if I miss a text message or if I miss a different kind of notification, an instant messenger, right? It's a higher priority in the mindset when it comes to that. And so it's easy to fall into a rhythm of being like, okay, I'm doing digital outreach, right? Surveys show, and you guys will like this, surveys show that 91% of consumers want to be followed up with via text. 91%. Now notice the key word there, followed up with. That means that the origination, though, of the conversation started with a different modality, right? It eventually got to a phone call, and then it's like, hey, once I've got the complex message from you, now follow up with me quickly and easily and efficiently through text, right? That's great. That's good to know. But when it comes to now using multiple modalities, right, that'll constantly drive responses, I want you to focus on the fact that if I call you, right, so I can see Maria on my screen as well here. If I call Maria and I leave Maria a voicemail, she's going to get 2 notifications, missed call, new voicemail. If I then immediately also send a text to Maria, right, then it shows also a text message. That's 3 notifications now that the brain is going priority. 24 notifications on my phone, 3 of them are all from one person. I'm now going to go check that. I'm going to read one of those messages, check the voicemail, etc. I have a higher 3 times more likely probability of response than a singular approach outreach. So I'm always going to recommend, guys, multiple modalities as far as outreach. Now, one of the questions we get on this slide is people will say, well, Mike, what about like overdoing it? Doesn't that annoy somebody? What annoys somebody is doing that same outreach every single day, or calling them at 9 in the morning, calling them at noon, and then calling them at 10 o'clock at night, right? That annoys somebody. It doesn't annoy them if it's done in a singular cluster all at once. I just called you, I left you a voicemail, I sent you a quick text, right? Not a lengthy text, just my text messages will typically say, hey, I just left you a voicemail, would love to talk about blank, whatever my approach outreach was. That's it, okay? Very simple stuff. This is all about psychology. And the principal benefit of the phone call is less about me actually getting them on the phone and more about the benefit of being able to convey something that's more complex, being able to convey my personality in a voicemail, which is, by the way, the single most important attribute in prospecting is your personality, your tone of voice, your energy level, etc. The psychology of the higher priority communication, when they miss a phone call, it's the highest priority out there. And that it creates a higher level of consumer guilt when we miss multiple modalities. So all we're doing is trying to increase the guilt level a little bit by having multiple contacts all within one simple cluster to create a higher probability of response. Is everybody clear with that? Okay. So prioritizing your efforts when you sit down every day, let's say you say, okay, Mike, I'm knocking out 2 hours worth of prospecting every day. If, by the way, if you don't have a full pipeline, 2 hours a day should absolutely be your clocked time frame to be working on like prospecting efforts and or networking for new relationships so that you can build your list to be doing more prospecting efforts. But in priority, I'm going to put this in line as far as highest conversions, highest follow-ups, highest potentials. Number one will be anybody who I've already talked with that has shown interest in something. So all of my follow-ups, I'm doing that every single day. That is the very first thing on my list. I'm then doing my sphere of influence reach outs, right? I'm knocking that out in about 20 to 25 minutes. Then I'm looking at my past client list. I'm saying, okay, based on my past client list and the outreach of that, how often or how many of them am I contacting today? And I'm doing those outreaches. Those might be calls. Those might be me putting together a gift that I send out, a mailer that I send out. It might be an email that I send out. Touching past clients will have its own kind of funnel as far as what we recommend with touches. And a lot of it, guys, is the first 12 months is pretty heavy. And then after the first 12 months, it starts to get to about once a quarter kind of thing. Okay. Number 3 then is cold outreach. So that would be, Mike, I work an expired list. I work a for sale by owner list. I'm working on likely to sell list. Anything that might be like a digital, like cold environment, I'm okay there. Digital outreaches are now, and this is priority level 4. This is the last priority. Everything else better happen before you jump on Facebook and start, messaging people on Facebook and commenting on things on Facebook and looking at ads and doing your mailers. Like that is your 4th priority in regards to efforts for prospecting. Okay. Because everything else on that list has a higher conversion and probability of generating an actual deal for you than number 4. Now, if you're that person, you're like, Mike, I get a ton of deals off of social media and digital outreach. Great. Understand that the conversion rate is even higher than what you're getting in digital outreach for some of those other areas, if you focus on them and you do them right. Okay. Make sure we're good with time here. High impact activities. This is where I want to spend a little bit of minutes here today. And then I will leave us a few minutes here for some Q&A as well. And I'll check the chat. If you've put in a question, I'll come back to it. High impact activities. So the purpose of prospecting when I do an outreach is not to close a deal or turn a client in that exact outreach. Like no one, when I'm making that cold call, is like, yes, let's do it. I want to sign up with you right this second, right? And the reason for that is that I have a lot of major distractions and communication blockers when I'm calling somebody who doesn't know that I'm calling them. So even my sphere of influence, it's a random call, right? They don't know that I was calling at 11 o'clock on a Wednesday, right? All of a sudden they get a call from me. They're like, hey, how's it going? If I get somebody on the phone, my entire obligation is to try to move them into what we call high impact activities. And I'll give you a list of some of these. You're going to get an entire draft list of these next week when we talk about scripts. But just to give you kind of an idea of what a high impact activity is, a CMA or like dropping off a property analysis, that's a high impact activity. An investment analysis, like showing like an investment property and showing someone who might be interested in investments, like what it might look like to buy a property in your area. A performance analysis. If you are in rental worlds, performance could be for a landlord. I love the word performance analysis for anything because it doesn't sound as cookie cutter as CMA, by the way. So like, how's the performance of your past listing? If you're dealing with expireds, that's a great high impact activity to try to get into with someone who was just listed and didn't sell. Inviting people out to showings, having fun showing property, showing them new builds, showing them different areas, like just having fun, or inviting someone to an open house maybe that you're hosting in that upcoming weekend, right? If we define high impact activities, it's defined by a couple features, okay? And the reason that we want to create these environments is that I need to have face-to-face contact in order to build a relationship and really have the potential to convert a customer or prospect into a client. And so anything that's considered a high impact activity should create a face-to-face contact environment for me. That's number one, right? It should also give me a good amount of time that is different than that of a phone call. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean a half an hour or an hour. It might mean 5 to 10 minutes. So if a homeowner has agreed to allow me to drop off a CMA or a performance analysis of their home, great. I might only have 5 to 10 minutes to talk to them. That's still an ample amount of time. Okay, that's different than what I might get on a phone call. If it's just like, get to the point, what's going on? Yes, I'm interested. No, I'm not interested, right? I want an environment that allows me, or an activity that allows me to express my knowledge, my expertise, or my advice in real estate. So it does need to be real estate driven as far as the activity. It should give me the ability to have dialogue back and forth in order for me to investigate their interests and ultimately create a connection with that particular consumer. Okay. So high impact activities, they remove barriers of communication, where if I'm on the phone or via text, someone can just opt out of the conversation by either ending the call and or just not returning my text or my email, right? That's a communication barrier. I also don't have any distractions. If you take someone out for showings, if they come to an open house, they've taken time out of their day to investigate real estate, right? If I've set up a time to drop off a property analysis, they know I'm coming. That 10, 15 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it is, they've set aside. They're interested. Their mind is ready to talk about real estate. There's a lot less distractions than if I'm just on an outreach call, okay? So high impact activities should include those 5 characteristics, all right? And I'll give you a list of probably like 25 different activities, buyer and seller related, that you guys can kind of transform yourself. One of the cool topics we talked about actually yesterday is that if you are at an office, and this won't apply to everybody, but if you are at an office where you have window listings, right? Like they're actually in the windows, et cetera, and you get the people that are walking by and like, they're looking at them. Agents ask a question a lot in those situations where they're like, how do I approach somebody outside of our window? What do I say to them? Right? Because if you come outside and you're like, hey guys, are you interested in real estate? Immediately the consumer is like, ick. Like, oh, I just got pitched. I was just walking past your office, bro. Like, please don't do that. And if you are doing that, please stop doing that. Okay. What we want to see is we want to see engagement. There are 2 things people actually really enjoy talking about. Number 1, themselves. And number 2, specifically their opinion. Okay. So if you formulate your approach to conversations, again, high impact activity in mind, right? I want to engage a consumer first in order then to get to a point where I'm going to be suggesting that the next step in our conversation is for me or them or us to participate in a high impact activity. And so look at it from a almost like a process standpoint. If I were to say, here's the factory, here are the lines or the chains within the actual line of communication, I'm going to have a hello, something that is not salesy. I'm going to get this person involved into a conversation that is going to be about their opinion, right, of something. So if it's the window things, I might walk outside and say, which one do you think is actually worth more, this property or this property? I might point to 2 on the window. I might say, which one of these do you think the pictures actually show better than what the actual property shows inside? And I'm just going to ask them to explore their mind, because those are questions they don't normally get. But when people are looking at listings on the window of a real estate company, they're trying to picture the lifestyle of that home, the people that live there, the neighborhood, et cetera. That's what excites us to start with. So I'm going to ask them to explore those things with me, right? So I'm going to have the intro, the hello, the what's your opinion kind of portion of the conversation. And then I'm going to suggest a high impact activity. And that might be through another question. Has anybody ever shown you X? Like the performance of what your property would look like as a rental? Have they ever shown you this within your marketplace? Have they ever set you up on a monthly analysis report for your home? Have they ever sent you the other listings or sent you up on like some sort of listing report if they're a tenant or a probable buyer? There's all kinds of suggestive ways, guys, for us to transition conversations into high impact activities. But this is going to always be one of the most important facets of prospecting. So I'm going to go ahead and stop my share. Okay. It is important to understand, guys, that I don't want anybody trying to go from 0 to 100. And so what I will get in comments from people after courses like this is they'll say, Mike, I'm barely getting to my sphere of influence. How the heck am I supposed to set up all those other things that you just talked about? You're not at this stage, right? Don't go from 0 to 100. Focus on dialing in one vertical with your particular prospecting, and then begin to shift and add additionals as that becomes a habit for you. Okay. If you already have multiples that you're kind of dabbling with, start to create consistency in regards to your schedules and your time blocks to include those on a daily basis so that you can really create the habits in the system that will procure into multiple transactions for you. Okay. Let me look at our chat here. Let's see here. Where can I find the stuff from the last week again? It is inside the member dev platform. So when you log in to our Chirag Shah member dev platform, it is in the sessions area. And it looks like there's a few people that put information on there. It's under the sessions tab, and you will see the recordings and anything that is resources there as well. Tana, what about going on a listing appointment or a buyer intake meeting? Is that high impact? Well, let's look at it. Does it meet the litmus test? Is it something where it's going to be face-to-face? I'd say yes. Is it something where I'm going to have ample amount of time to kind of discuss and dive in? I would say yes. Is it something where I'm going to be able to show expertise and knowledge? Buyer intake meeting, maybe. Okay. I want you guys to be really careful though on how you're staging some of these meetings, because consumers don't like to be processed. So if you're like, well, let me just pull out my buyer intake form and let me get you to sign this sheet, and could you give me this in? Consumers hate it. They're like, don't process me like a robot or a transaction. Like, make sure that these things still are designed for you to be able to show advice and knowledge. So I would say the intake, as long as you can get the knowledge section in there, would meet the litmus test, right? Because it is face-to-face. It gives me time. I want to show knowledge. I want to be able to make sure that I have time to gather information or investigate their interests and create a connection. If it does those 5 things, I would consider it a high impact activity, right? Andrea, do we schedule an appointment to deliver that CMA? I have someone I want to deliver a CMA to, but can't get him on the phone. Yes and no, right? Like again, the whole point of it is obviously to get a face-to-face conversation and lock down that 5 to 10 minutes, right? And so I would say, like, if you can't get them on the phone yet, an email or something that's like, hey, I'm actually going to be in your neighborhood or whatever tomorrow and Wednesday. Which day works better for you for me to drop this off? I need just 5 minutes to cover this for you. Don't say, when is the best time? Give them 2 choices. Ask them which 2 choices they'd like to choose from. Okay. And if they're like, neither of those work, but you can come on Friday, fantastic. Right? Give them choices versus yes or no responses. Okay. Let's see here. How should I, I just lost something. How should I start a conversation with someone at an open house? We're going to talk all about the scripts of that actually, Jay, next week, because open house is one of the activities that we're going to model. And we'll talk about, again, the kind of process of like the hello, the conversation around opinion, and then the transition of what we consider high impact activity like suggestions and like trying to move people into that next stage. It's really, really important and helpful. Isn't past clients a part of SOI? Yes and no. They are a part of my sphere of influence, like they're included, but my call approach and my actual prospecting of them is very different than general outreach, right? So if I've got 400 people within my sphere of influence and 100 of them are past clients, my past clients have a different funnel. Like my call patterns with them are different than my sphere of influence. If they're a past client and it's in the last 12 months, I am touching them about every 45 days with something. Could be a gift, it could be a call, it could be something about their home, whatever it is. I want to make sure that it's there, and my entire focus of those phone calls is referrals and making sure that they're talking about me to everyone that they know, right? After that, they kind of roll into now a touch base for about because they're a low probability of a return client. So I'm going to roll them probably into about a quarterly approach until about year 4. At year 4, they get taken off of my previous clients list. They go right now back into my normal sphere of influence, because at that stage, I'm now treating them as a potential now buyer and seller again. And I'm approaching it with the same kind of dialogue as I am everyone else on my list. And I'll go through those sequences, guys, next week. That next week, this is all we're going to be talking about, are those kinds of things. All right. What I want, Wayne, if you can, do you have a list of possible 28 impressions? It could be anything. Like when I hear the word squirrel, I think of acorn. Right? When I think of cow, I think of milk. The reason that has happened in my mind, and it could be different for you, is because my mind has seen that, visually seen it at least 28 or more times collectively together. A squirrel and an acorn, squirrel and an acorn. Now, when I see just an acorn, I think of squirrel automatically. If I see squirrel, I automatically correlate it with acorn. I want that for real estate. But that could be anything, as long as the brain visually is seeing you with a listing sign, you with a buyer, you with a seller, seeing you post something about real estate or the industry. Like, it needs to correlate the two 28 times to begin that thought process. That's like the minimum. Okay. So let's do this. I'm going to post the link here for our next session, which is the accountability session. And I'm going to jump right over to that, guys. Let's see here. Copy. And let me go ahead and paste this in our chat. If you have other questions, move it on over to our accountability session, and I will see you guys there in just a minute.